So friends, I have recently returned from Paris myself. As such, I have fulfilled a dream that I have had since high school, to visit the great art museums in the greatest art city in the world. And I must say, I was not disappointed. The very air in Paris thrums with art, and the vast collection spread over a dozen museums truly boggles the mind. Buffalo, New York, the city where I grew up, was a hard-working steel mill town where if you didn't like sports and drinking, there was very little to do on the weekend except that some multimillionaire left the city his modern art collection and enough of an endowment that the museum built in his name was free of charge. Almost every weekend I visited the Albright Knox because, well, as I said, it was free, and it was a place you could bring a date that made you look a little less adolescent, I guess. I liked the Warhol soup cans and the Pollock canvases, seemingly still dripping with paint. But what I liked most in that collection was the one Picasso they had. I can still picture it, a dark, foreboding, huge painting depicting a minotaur, wraith-like in its mythic power and unbridled masculinity. It was something that was chaotic, something out of a frightening dream, but a dream that you were somehow compelled to visit again and again. So besides the Louvre and the d'Orsay and some of the other more obvious offerings, I worked my way down the narrow side streets of Lower Paris to find that less traveled Pablo Picasso museum. The collection was essentially all the things left over in the artist's house when he died. Picasso's son simply just handed over the keys and walked away. So besides a few paintings that Picasso thought were too good to sell, there were many experiments never deemed good enough to sell. Wicker icons and these mutated things carved in wood and strange half-shaped. I don't know, I loved it. Kind of. Honestly, though, it felt a little voyeuristic, like his son had simply violated his father's privacy by letting us poke around in the fragmented bits and pieces of his dream life. Picasso was a fine artist, and he could paint realism as well as the next one. But he is beloved for his fragmentedness. And of course, what I mean by that is the years he spent producing Cubist renditions. In Cubism, a painter takes all the various perspectives on a subject, the subject from various different angles, and tries to translate them all at the same time onto a flat canvas. It is, of course, an impossible goal. There is no way to take all the disparate perspectives on a thing and smooth them out, make them look organized, make them look cohesive. But Picasso deeply believed that the cacophony of these pasted together perspectives was actually truer to the subject than a single straight-on portrait. An interesting philosophy, I should say, an interesting theology, because isn't that the same thing that we believe? Whether or not we're always honest about it, don't we secretly like a theology where dozens of incongruent perspectives are placed together? This is what the critics of Christianity say about us. And they are often more honest about the nature of the church than are we. I think we do. I think we actually like the fragmentedness of our collected faith. And it's a bit of a shame that we don't embrace that more. At least that is what St. Paul indicates in his letter to the Ephesians. But I'm not quite ready to get there. A little patience. We'll get there. Brothers and sisters, the world only has 3 major religions: Christianity and the 2 that came after it. The 2 that wanted to smooth out the disjointed, multi-lens theology perspective of both Cubism and the church. The first religious response to the chaos at the center of Christian theology was Islam. When Muhammad was young, he idolized the church. He thought we Christians had it all. When his movement began, he had all of his followers prostrate towards Jerusalem, not Mecca. And when he was chased out of town by the Quraysh, he went directly to the Christian king Najashi, looking for a mentor, looking for protection. But as the revelations kept coming, Muhammad couldn't shake how muddled Christian doctrine seemed. 3 gods or 1 God? Was Jesus a man or was he God? Like, how could he be both? How can the cross, this image of Roman capital punishment, signify victory? And what do we mean when we say we're supposed to drink his blood and eat his flesh? What a strange, jumbled religion. Wouldn't it be better, wouldn't it be simpler, cleaner if we did just smooth out the edges? If we spoke only of God like our ancestors did before all this Christological confusion? I mean, really. Although I find something lacking in Islam, I have to admit the theology is a lot cleaner, a lot more straightforward than ours. And in time, another religion arose after Islam, secular humanism. It took that task of simplifying one step further. Why not simply get rid of God altogether? Let's be fully human, full stop. And dearly beloved, that is where we are today. 3 religions, one with this chaotic, dreamy, jumbled, fluid image of God right there in the center of its beliefs, one with a cleaner, tidied up image of God, and one with no God at all. There are other religions, of course, but in terms of their number of inheritance, they all pale behind these great 3. Christianity has tried itself to clean up the problems of its disjointedness, let's call it its cubist approach to theology. Early on, Rome put St. Augustine in charge of making order, and he tried, as have an endless stream of systematizers after him. But the truth is, compared to the other 2 prominent religions, our center is not clear. It has never been clear. A recent study out of the Pew Research shows that one third of conservative evangelicals do not believe Jesus was God. That number is much greater, obviously, here in the liberal end of the pool, but there is nothing new about this. Church history shows that we have never really uniformly answered the question, who is Jesus? A multitude of perspectives have always existed. We've always had a multitude of atonement theories. No one, if we're honest, no one really understands the complete meaning of this feast that we share at this table. Neither, incidentally, did the disciples or the followers of the first generation church. It was something they did. It clearly had power. It clearly still has power. But it did not begin with a theological rationale, and it's never been uniformly understood. For all the attempts we have made to clamp down, to define what it is that Christians believe, we've never settled once and for all on, well, pretty much on anything. We are, and we will likely always be, a bit of a cubist painting. Lots of perspectives and angles and viewpoints, uncomfortably sharing a single canvas. My dear friends, maybe we should celebrate that instead of endlessly trying to pretend that it's not true. Pauline thought is never more clear, never more focused than in Paul's letter to the Ephesians. Here, his inner thoughts are crystallized beautifully. Never, I think, more than in today's little pericope. I, Paul, pray, implore, that you may have the power to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and the length and the height and the depths, so that you may know the love of Christ that surpasses understanding, that surpasses logic, that surpasses simplistic attempts at cohesion, that surpasses the desire to condense and constrict and to unify the truth into a simple single lens portrait. Paul begs, let it be fluid, let it be divergent, let the Spirit stretch you, expand your soul to embrace the breadth and the length and the height and the depths of all the various viewpoints, because if you can't embrace the multifaceted cubist center at the middle of this glorious religion, then you will never fully understand the love of God. The love which, quite frankly, surpasses understanding. Friends, why do we always fall back on the question, did it really happen? Did Jesus really walk across the Lake of Galilee? Is that historically true? Why does it feel less somehow if we think of it as a dream or a vision? If you got on a city bus this afternoon and you sat down and you began to eavesdrop on a conversation that was already in process between two other passengers, and you overheard one of them say, "It was like we were in a boat on a lake and it was dark and the wind was blowing, and did I mention that we were like 3 or 4 miles out? I don't really know how I knew that, but we were way out there, and then somehow Jesus was also there, like walking towards the boat, and we were terrified. And he said, 'Don't be afraid.' We thought he would get in, but again, I'm not quite sure how it happened. We were actually back on land at that point." If you heard such a tale, wouldn't you assume they were talking about a dream? Yes. We do like things solid, don't we? Of course we do. We live and we move and we have our being in a very secular humanist world. We have been taught that we need to present our Christian beliefs in some kind of rational, orderly fashion. We have been taught that it would be better if we presented the gospel stories as historical truth, not myth or dream. And at some unconscious level, we know, don't we? We know that if we admitted that our most central beliefs are profound, but not clear, and our accounts of Jesus are mystical, but not scientifically verifiable, then the world would scoff at us even more than they do now. And it's true. They would. They do. But the world is not our master. And we have nothing to prove to those whose hearts are unwilling to embrace the breadth and the width and the height and the depth of the swirly, dreaming perspectives that we hold about our God. So I say, who cares? Yes, there's a lot of pressure from this secular humanist world to clean all this up. And if the predictions are true and Islam does become the dominant religious force on the planet in our generation, then there will come a lot of pressure from them as well for us to justify our beliefs, to systematize our doctrines. But again, I say, who cares? The beauty, the undeniable sheer beauty of our faith is its multi-perspective center. The power of our Christ is that he is alive as much in our visions and our dreams as he was in the days of Caesar Augustus. We are a people like Picasso, like St. Paul, who know that truth is something broader and longer and higher and deeper than mere logic, than worldly understanding, than theological consistency. And that thing that surpasses all understanding, that chaotic, multi-perspective, dreamy, gooey thing at the center of Christianity, well, We call that love. Love is what is at the center. And it comes in many hues and many shapes. It comes to us like a dream fulfilled. A dream the world cannot control or even give language to. My dear brothers and sisters and siblings otherwise defined, let us be proud of who we are. Let us be grateful for the beautiful, chaotic, cubist theology around which we gather as one holy and deeply beloved body of Christ. Amen. Friends, let us stand and sing